this is Chrissie B with BeautifulCreatives.com. Today is Art Journal Thursday, March 5th, 2015. As I get ready to start my art journal page today, I decided that I was going to put an under layer of tissue paper. So as you can see, I'm laying down some decorative tissue paper here. This is a tissue paper put out by Tim Holtz. If you want to know the specifics of any of the products I'm using today, please feel free to go over to BeautifulCreatives.com and you could check out a list of supplies used there. So I wanted to just kind of lay down some decorative tissue paper, and I wanted to try a technique that I had actually tried last week and I felt did not work. So I actually ended up whiting it out last week and starting over. But what I want to do is I want to add colors to my background using my jelly plate. And so I started to do that this week, and I decided that to make it simpler on myself and maybe not quite so overwhelming was to limit my color palette to 3 different colors. I chose an orange, a red, and a really deep dark kind of teal color. And I also added some white to the teal color because it actually was pretty dark, and I wanted to keep this spread pretty light. As I was laying these colors down, the thing that I kind of kept running through my mind was the fact that I was making a quilt on paper. Just all of the different patterns and the different shapes. Some were rectangles, some were squares, some were overlapping. It just really was very reminiscent of a quilt for me, and I just thought that was just such a cool way to go. What you may notice is that I am using a little stylus to squiggle different lines and marks in my paint before I'm actually laying it down. So there's squiggles and there's some spirals, and I just have some polka dots and different kinds of lines and hashtags and whatnot. And I just wanted to kind of just add a lot of texture to the different squares, what in my mind at this point was now quilt squares, and I just wanted to keep the texture really vibrant and crisp. At this point, what I'm doing is I'm going through with a black Stabilo pencil, and I am just marking out all of my lines as if maybe this was where I was sewing if it were a quilt. I'm just putting down my lines to kind of break up each square and rectangle and kind of give it its own little space. I will in a few minutes go through with a brush with water and activate all of this Stabilo pencil so it'll kind of give it a nice vibrancy and give it a nice thick deep dark line. It starts out pretty black and then it kind of fades out to a kind of a charcoaly gray, but it's still pretty dark, and I think it gives a really cool effect to the different squares. It almost made them look like they were popping off the page a little bit. So I really like this. It seemed to work out really well for me. I've got all of my squares marked out with the Stabilo pencil and the activating it with the water brush. There were a few of the squares because if you remember, I didn't put the tissue paper all over the background. I only put it on the majority of it, but not the entire page. And I noticed that a couple of the squares were a little bland to me. They kind of seemed to not fit in, like something wasn't quite right. So I decided to take a few of my rubber stamps and just use some of the black archival ink to kind of fill in some spaces. And they're kind of random. There's not really any rhyme or reason to what shapes I chose. I just picked things that I liked. and kind of filled in some of my blank spaces. I got the background the way that I liked it, I decided to pull out a white pen, and I wanted to frame each one of my little boxes. And to do that, I just you might notice it's kind of messily scribbled haphazardly, just kind of making sure I'm sort of mimicking the shape of each of the individual squares and rectangles. And I think it's a detail that maybe most people won't notice, but it just, for me, seemed to tie the page together and kind of made it a little bit more interesting, and it gave it a little more detail to look at. It also kind of drew your eye to, at least in my opinion, it drew your eye to more of a depth that each of the squares were having, because at this point it looks like, to me, that they're kind of 3D. They're not all flat on the piece of paper, which was kind of cool. So I'm just going to continue messily scribbling the shape of each one of these, and as soon as I'm happy with it, then I will move on to the next step. Now for my sentiment. This sentiment actually came rather easily to me. I'm finding that because I generally art in the quiet, these sentiments come to me rather easily, which I appreciate. So this one says, you may be the only light in the world someone sees today. Make sure you shine bright. And I just thought that was such a good sentiment for this week, because it's a message that I keep hearing repeatedly in my own life. And I thought that this page was just so bright and vibrant and happy and joyful that it just really felt like it belonged. Maybe that this sentiment was actually made just for this page. So all I'm doing here is I have printed my sentiment out on computer paper using a font off my computer, and then I glued it down with some a glue stick, and then after letting it dry a little bit, I'm taking a black waterproof pen and I'm kind of framing each one of the words with scribbly marks. I really like scribbly. I don't know why. It just takes the pressure off yourself when you're not trying to make everything perfect. And if you make something scribbly on purpose, it ends up looking better in my mind. Well, that covers this Art Journal Thursday. I hope you enjoyed this page. I really liked it a lot. I think that the background really turned out really nicely. And even my husband, who, you know, he's seen a lot of my work, he's very familiar with what I do, he really liked this one too. He said, ooh, this one I think is my most favorite. So, and I have to agree with him. I think out of all of the Art Journal spreads I've done so far for Art Journal Thursday, this one is my absolute favorite, and I'm so happy to be able to share it with you. and to be able to kind of have a do-over on what I felt was a hot mess last week. So thanks again so much for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys make it so much fun to do what I do. Please thumbs up and subscribe, and if you have any ideas for any future techniques you'd like me to see on any of my future videos, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. I love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Bye for now.